Hey, what's up? I'm Pascal from Orangepixel and welcome to another video about game development. For those that watched last week's video about the aquarium, worst view numbers on one of my videos in like forever, so don't worry, I'm going to go back to game development, but that had to be done last week. There was no other solution. This week's video, I'm just gonna do a one-take, unedited, ramble type session thingy. So for those new to the channel, I'm a game developer, independent game developer, as we all want to be in indie. I've been it since 2004. That means this year marks my 20 years as a game developer, full-time, creating games, living from the creation of those games. Let's talk a little bit about how this year is going and where we're going. And because this is going to be unedited, well, it's going to be a little bit edited because I'm going to edit in the intro right about now. And of course, I'll also just continue talking in the same take. And that was the intro. Let's move on. My plans for this year, and I usually have a video talking about the plans for a year. And this year I didn't because honestly, you can set goals and things at the beginning of the year. And you're going to focus on those things and you're actually going to do it. So at the end of the year, it's not going to be a surprise. The goals have been met because usually those goals are set with realistic ideas. So it has no point in setting those goals. So this year I didn't set goals except that I'm working on 3 games and I need to release at least 2 of those. And depending how that goes, I might actually have to release a 3rd game. The game development market has been changing a lot. Sure, we're all whining about how crowded it is. I mean, there are thousands of games, hundreds of new games each week. So thousands of games each year, and that's just on Steam. Then you have all these other platforms, and there's just a lot of competition because tools have become so easy. And creating games, at least basic games or certain level of games, has become easier. The tools are there. You can just grab stuff here and there, plug it in, play with it, and you'll end up with a game that's pretty good. I still think there is like a difference in crafting, but honestly, you can put a lot of time into game development and tweaking things and all that stuff, and that's great on the back end. Players won't notice. So if you can just copy and paste stuff and you create a game like that, that's certainly a way to do it these days, and that's what makes it hard in this business. I'm still old school, I guess. I like to create my own code. I like to write my own code. That's what I enjoy. That's pretty much the thing I love to do. The only downside of that is that I actually have to sell those games, and I don't like that part at all, but it has to be done in order for me to continue doing the fun stuff, pretty much. So I think that's the ramble of today. Creating games there's different layers, and it's easy. It become easier than ever, and everybody's creating games and everybody's releasing games and everybody wants to make games and play games, and all that stuff is great. But it's also made it a lot harder to sell those games. And anyway, rambling. And on my last ramble video, people commented I should create topics and get to a point. The whole idea of me rambling is that I do not have those. All my other videos, I have points and I have ideas what I'm going to talk about and conclusions. I'm just starting this video talking to you. We'll end up somewhere or maybe nowhere. That's fine as well. I started this year working on Regulator City, while continuing working on Regulator City. Most of January and February has been put into that game because the game got funded last year or 2 years. Last year. It got funded early last year, so a year ago. That game just has to be finished and wrapped up this year, and we have to ship it and sell it. How funding works is pretty simple. It's like an investment. It is an investment, so money came in that allowed me to build out the game. There's money for marketing, possibly. There's some money for porting, stuff like that. We'll have to see how that all goes because the game required a lot more work than I originally wanted to. And then that money has to be made back for the investors. Pretty simple, pretty basic. Also, that's very clear. So for me, it's very clear what's going to happen with this game. Once it sells, there's a share going to go to the funders, share coming to me. That's pretty much what it's going to be. To make sure I'm also surviving this year, I needed another project alongside because most of that funding, a lot of it was used last year just for the day-to-day pretty much see it as my wages, my own paycheck every month. A lot of my paycheck last year came from that funding, not all of it, because I'm still selling my original game and all the other games that are out there. So, but that's pretty much how the split goes a little bit. There's still money left. I need another game to make sure there's more money coming in once the money runs out and the other game is released, and I needed something. So Gauntlet of Power was created pretty quickly, talked about that in many videos, and I've been spending some time on that. Right now I just need to add save game option, save and load game option to that. And I think we're done on it, pretty much releasable. I need to build it into an actual demo. There is a demo on Steam available now, but it's outdated compared to the newest build. So I need to create a new demo, and that's gonna be the final demo most likely. And a little here and there, a couple of things I want to add, but overall maybe 1 or 2 weeks of work left on that game, then it's done. I'm not releasing it yet. We're gonna do a Steam Fest in June. Marketing, contacting streamers and Twitchers and stuff like that, and trying to bump up the wishlist on Steam, and then we'll get it ported to Switch by my big buddy Serious Lion over on the Discord, who does all my games to Nintendo Switch. We have a great cooperation together, 50-50 equal share, so it's going to be interesting for him as well to get that game on Switch as soon as possible. I might do a mobile version for it, but that's going to be later, because for the difficulties of having a game on PC at like maybe $13 and then having it on mobile for like $4, that's weird to have those at the same time. So mobile can wait for a while, and it will come to mobile eventually, just to have a long tail on Android and all that stuff. But that game's pretty much done. Regulated City is the other game, that the funded game. Added load and save game to that last week, so that pushes it to almost the same spot as Regulators or as Gauntlet of Power. I'm mixing up all my games here. A lot of the code I wrote for Regulated City for loading and saving can be copied to Gauntlet of Power, so that's why it's going to be very easy to get that up and running. Not all of it, because a lot of the data, or pretty much all the data that one game saves, doesn't mean the other game has that same data. So that's not going to be the difference, but interface can be used, and just the core functionality of loading and saving data can be used. So both those games are pretty much on track, and we're now on February the, let me check, 18th, 19th of February. That means I'm ahead on schedule, I think. I wanted to work on Space Grunts this week, the third game I started in December. I should have some video up here and there, so I'm gonna edit the video a little bit. I wanted to dive back into that one, but Regulated City, I'm just in such a good flow, and I still have so many new ideas popping up for that game. I'm giving it a little bit of a couple of extra weeks of development, I think, and then I'll be diving into my third project, Space Grunts. Perhaps we're gonna release it this year. I am gonna release it this year. I wanted to have a demo for that game in March. That's not gonna happen. No, there's no way I'm gonna get the game at a certain level that it's actually fun and fully playable for a Steam audience. People will look at it and it won't be clear what this game is gonna be. So there's not gonna be a demo in March. That's just not realistic. Steam page up in March should be doable, although I do need art for it for something. So not sure how I'm gonna do that. That means, yeah, a little edit. If I'm sneezing or coughing, then there's a little cut here and there. That means we released a game on the Switch already, Sir Questionnaire, in January. We're releasing an Atari game in the next couple of weeks. That's going to be Snake Core. Sir Questionnaire will then also release on Atari maybe a month later. So game releases are happening, and yeah, I think I'm just on track on everything. And it's also strange for me, for some reason, on January the 1st, I reset everything. I put everything on 0. Like, obviously there is money in the Orangepixel bank account, but all my spreadsheets, all my data, I'm resetting it to 0. This is a new year. This is the end goal. I need to make this amount of money. So let's go for it again. Let's see where we can find that money or collect that money from. There's obviously a lot of game sales still happening. All my games are out there. I did a big sale for Steam, Android, iOS and Switch for all the games available on those platforms. Switch did pretty well. Can't remember. It did pretty well. I think 900 euros in a month. That's fairly good. Android did about 600. That's extremely well compared to the Switch, because there's a price difference on mobile and Switch. PC haven't really checked, but haven't really checked, so I don't really know the numbers. Not expecting a huge amount, but every sale I do does bring in new players and all that stuff. iOS didn't do a lot, but yeah, that's normal on iOS. For some reason, game discounts or sales don't bring in a lot of sales on iOS, and I'm not sure what the difference is between Android and iOS, but yeah, doing sales on iOS just isn't important, which also means keeping your games updated and alive on iOS is also less important, because less money is coming in from them anyway. So is it worth the time investment? That's always a little thing you have to ask. Now, I like to have my games available on as many platforms as possible, so at some point I'm gonna update the iOS builds and versions, because it would be a shame not to have them on there, and they're still making a little bit of money, but we're talking like maybe 4 or 5 or maybe 2 or 3 sales per game per month. So that's, yeah, not a lot of money on iOS, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't have them on there, because people might play it on iOS, and then once they buy a good Android device, they might actually want my games again, and then they'll buy it on Android. So I did discount like that, and that's pretty much where a lot of my money is coming from right now, because my last new game release was in September 2021, Residual, which also has a lot of residuals. So there's still revenue coming in from that game and all the other games. But I need to release something ASAP, honestly. I'm taking a little gamble here, not releasing a game just yet, and pushing Gauntlet of Power to like June, July. But it's a calculated risk. There's still money in the bank, so I know I can survive those months easily. It's just the risk is pretty much how much is the game gonna make. And that's a little bit hard to decide and to calculate. And of course, the more wishlist you have, the more sales you'll have, probably. But that doesn't mean you can calculate those numbers already. And it's not like 3,000 wishlist will equal 1,000 sales. There's no math to it. And I know a lot of articles and developers and indie marketing companies and other gurus are talking about it like that. There is no math to it, and you can probably do a guesstimate, and that's probably the math. A guesstimate is that an X amount of percent of wishlist will turn into buyers, and then there's people that haven't wishlisted but only read about the game once it releases, and they will buy it. And at some point there is some guesstimate you can do, and then you can calculate for what kind of price you're selling. But of course, if you're selling it in Europe or America, it's at a certain level of dollars or euros. But if you move to like Brazil or Taiwan or I don't know. So if it sells for like maybe 300 Turkish lira, dollar thingies, coins. Not sure what you're using over there. Honestly, sorry. Not insulting anybody, but I just don't know those things. But that's probably equals to like maybe 25 cents in Europe. Again, just making these numbers up, but this gets you the point across. Selling in certain countries is a lot more valuable to me than in other countries. So the United States as main market is a lot more interesting. Western Europe is a lot more interesting. Everything outside of that, it's nice having sales there, but it's not really interesting for me as a developer to get those numbers, because it's gonna be a little, like very tiny bit of percentage of revenue. So even having sales, 1,000 sales in Turkey and only 5 in the Netherlands, those 5 are probably still making more money than the 1,000 in Turkey. That's pretty much what's hard to calculate and guesstimate when you're selling games. So hopefully in the end it all works out, and 1 or 2 releases a year or this year should hopefully be enough, and then I can have Space Grunts and push it into next year. Take some time on that and probably start another project before then, especially if Regulated City is completely done, and it's now very close to that. It's on track. Gauntlet of Power is pretty much done. I have time left. I can focus on 2 or 3 games at a time. I now proven that, and I know a lot of people thought I was crazy doing that, but I have been doing it for a while, and it just works. Know what you're doing and be strict on your time and know when to switch and what to focus on. It can be done, and it just has to be done, honestly. I'm not creating hit games here. I'm creating very niche games for a certain market, for a tiny market, hard to reach market. So I need to make sure that the time I spend on my games is short enough and the amount of games I put out are big enough or enough, not enough. And you get the point, right? Yeah, so that's pretty much where my mindset is or has been all these weeks. The only time it's not working on those numbers and on the problems of all that is when I'm diving into game code and writing my games and creating my games. Then I'm just focused completely on the game, on the situation of creating that game. So it's been very productive the last couple of weeks. That's a very good thing. And it feels good to have these games on track. It's just still a worry to make sure these games are going to make enough money. But we're pushing that worry a little bit up front because we're not releasing just yet. But it does mean you have to think about it. Pretty much that makes the difference between doing this as a hobby or as a professional. It's a job. I need to make money from it, and I can't just think about the indie game developer dream, the ultimate thing that everybody wants. That's fine if you're a hobbyist or still living with mom and dad and they're paying the rent and all that. But once you grow up and you actually have to survive and make money, you need to think about those things, sadly. So I think that's enough rambling for this video. It's gonna take a little bit of editing here and there. Just sneezing and coughing has to be cut out because nobody wants that on camera. And I'll put in a couple of shots of my games, I guess. And I won't talk about aquariums anymore because those few numbers for last week's video, they hurt. That still, it kind of hurts. It's like getting bad reviews. It still hurts more than one good review or one good video. So yeah, I'll get over it eventually. But I won't be talking about aquariums a lot. For those that want to know, all the fish are thriving pretty well. There's one plant that might not have survived. It's still iffy. And there's one shrimp. We lost the shrimp. Actually, we didn't lose him because I saw him getting assimilated by the other shrimp. I think that's a good term to say. And we lost a snail. I thought I lost a snail before, but that snail actually survived. It suddenly appeared in the new aquarium. Not sure how it got there. I think it did some magic with the gravel being shoved and then... Anyway, but one other snail was just gone. He was there, but he wasn't moving for like a week. So one shrimp, one snail lost. Everything else is survived. This was all the talk I'll do about aquariums on this channel for this week. Alright, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below, hop on the Discord, and I'll see you next week. And no idea what I'm going to talk about. I'll make sure it's less rambling than this video was. Alright, bye.